recovering from Gary's wedding on a Wednesday night, non-game night, but we're doing a special Garden Report insert for a couple different reasons. Well, one, it is the unofficial start to NBA trade season, and that's initially what we were doing the show about. We're also, because everyone loves talking trades, after the show, we're going to invite all of you to, we're going to try something new tonight. We're going to do Twitter Spaces. In order to do that, it would help if you followed Celtics CLNS on Twitter. We'll remind you as the night goes on, and jump on with us. And we're going to talk, talk trades and talk a few other things. But all of this stuff got trumped today when the guy who the Celtics, who let Bobby right in the middle of the big setup.
Damn, Bobby. This is not
Bobby. Are we going to be okay here? Are we going to be all right?
I don't know what's going on. I'm going through some Joe Sway style issues here.
So
not the Wi-Fi. That's
we're just ramping up into this, okay? Just as we were talking about trades and blah blah blah, and also everything is fun and nice in Celtics land, and Grant Williams is going to be in the 3-point shootout, or who knows, and and he's going to pass Curry soon, and everyone's making that joke. Jimmy's on Twitter being a funny guy, and Jason and Jalen love each other, and they pass a lot, and this is what we can be. And then the guy Danny Ainge out of nowhere. The guy who apparently was so tired of the work in Boston that he decided to step away. 6 months later, gets the itch to return. So here we go. Just unfiltered reactions right out of the gate before we get into it. We're going to play a couple of clips, a couple sound bites from that as well. Talk a little bit of Danny, but Sherrod, go for it.
Love it. Love it. There is no better day on the NBA calendar than Trader Danny to get back in the game on the day when players who were signed over the summer can be traded. It is absolutely priceless that he would come back and return on this day. He could not have choreographed it any better than that. And let's be honest, if this is such a Danny Ainge type of thing to do, to come back on this particular day. I love it. I absolutely love that he's back in the game.
He waited till Grant had a couple good games, so his resume would look a little shinier. And then he walked right through that door, and he's like, he did the Belichick walking in Detroit walk. He just walks right in. Here I am. Boom.
No, he knew about this date, though. Yeah, for sure. I like how Sherrod put that. He definitely knew about this day. This is all by design, I think, for sure. And I love it. It's good for the NBA.
It's so good.
The Utah Jazz, for one reason or another, just haven't been able to get over the hump, right? They had the talent. They've had the roster. They keep saying that this could be our year. This could be our year. Well, this is the guy that they think they could get them over the hump, whether that means restructuring the roster in a certain way to help these guys, of course, guys like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Or, does he go down the other route and split those guys and does a groundbreaking trade? Who knows? It adds drama to the NBA, and for sure it adds drama to the Celtics situation, because everyone in the back of their minds thinking, well, what does this mean for the Celtics? Can somehow they make some sort of deal here that'll help the Celtics in some type of way? I don't know if they would involve someone like Donovan Mitchell, but who knows? Everyone is thinking.
Yeah, he's not going there to help the Celtics.
No, right, exactly. But at the same time, it adds
just the opposite
to the drama. You think about the NBA and how you can't it's unscripted, and at the same time, people predicted this a few months ago, but here it is, Danny Ainge back in the NBA.
Yeah, it's kind of mysterious, not in the sense that you didn't expect it to happen, because I think this was fairly well forecasted from the start, his willingness to come back into the league and do it with a Utah. I know we kicked around Portland a little bit for obvious reasons, but the Jazz were always going to be the team that piqued his interest, and he even said today that he expected them to come calling. He kind of had an idea that the owner of the Jazz was going to come along and look for him to step into this role. Now, the role's really weird. Seems like he's just kind of like a shadow GM to the GM who's already there. They had to assert several times that the GM in place, Justin Zanik, I believe, is still in full control there, and he's going to be taking calls and doing all these other things. So I'm not really sure what Danny's job is out there. He's certainly not going to be wheeling and dealing. This Jazz team's kind of set with what they have here. So I don't know how much suspense actually is.
Jay-Z is still in charge, okay? Jay-Z is still running things. He made that clear today.
But here's the thing about that, though. He may be officially running things, but they didn't bring Danny in here just to sit in the
Is
corner
this like
and
more
just
in
smile.
Philly? Yeah.
I think you're going to see Danny slowly but surely kind of slow drip his way into power in Utah. And it makes sense. That
Yeah,
team is just
you don't come in like that. You're right. It's his show, but he's gonna in the beginning be like,
he's got to
no.
play his role.
Right, because he has to
It's
evaluate
all
the
about Jay-Z.
situation.
I'm just here to
That's
help.
why. Yeah, in
I'm
the
just
beginning,
here to help.
he's going to
Yeah.
play his part in exactly evaluate the situation. And then when he puts in his 2 cents and when he wants to make moves, guys will back that up. You know, he has the track record.
When the GM answers to you, you're not here to help. You're the boss. Okay, this is, you know, it just is what it is. But it's a title that will make the general manager feel a little better about their job and less like whatever. And it's
complicated because the other guy's gonna be doing the work, right? And Danny's ramping back his hours.
It's perfect for Danny.
That's the new world
without accountability.
That's the way he likes it. Exactly. That's the way
he's going to have power without the accountability.
You can never get away with that in
With
Boston.
the job.
Without the hustle. Right. No, I mean, look, this is exactly what I mean. You see this a lot of times now. People come in and they hire their GMs, which is like, can you do all the busy work and I'll just say yes and no? You know, like Dave Dombrowski, he came in from the Red Sox and they're like, yeah, Ben can stay as GM. And Ben's like, fuck that, get out of here. And he left, but then they hired a GM. So there was a GM under Dave Dombrowski, but Dave Dombrowski's running the show. I know this is a weird title, but it's basically he's president of basketball operations and he has a GM underneath him, like who does the whatever. So he's running the show.
That's not the situation.
But the thing about it, Danny is in a position where he's insulated. If things go sideways, that's not on him because he's not the GM. But if things go amazingly awesome and Utah finds a way to win a championship this year, guess who's going to get a lot of that blame pie? Danny Ainge. Perfect.
Yeah.
This is why I love Danny. This is such a Danny Ainge power move. I love this. I love this.
And you could tell right from that NBC interview we kicked around last week.
You could tell from the press conference and from the way that the shakeup went down that Danny, look, and this is what it all comes down to. And I'll ask you once again. I was very dubious that Danny just said in February or March, oh, I'm tired. No, he was clearly nudged nicely out the door in an organization that wanted to make sweeping changes. And Danny was like, we love everything you've done, but what do you think? Maybe we're done here and we'll give you a soft landing and an easy exit and make it seem like it's a retirement. And that's what I always believed. Does anything here change your mind?
No, I think that Danny right now
knows it, right?
Well, I think Danny at that point knew that, if he walked away from the game, he was going to have some options on getting back into it. It was a matter of not if, but when he would want to re-engage himself. So to me, Danny knew that this is probably how things are going to work out within a year or so after he left the Celtics. He would wind up in an organization that had a much closer and, frankly, a more realistic shot at winning a championship than he was going to have here in Boston. And it would allow him to kind of pick and choose the organization that he would be with. And even though with this situation in Utah, they said that it kind of started to snowball when they were in the Bahamas playing golf and all that stuff, which, again, I think that may have been part of the conversation, but I don't think that was the
He must be so good at golf.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, listen, the thing about Danny Ainge, we all know this. He is a competitor. How many times are you really going to get juiced up about beating someone's ass in round of 18 or 36? At some point, you want to get back to what really drives you, what gets your adrenaline pumping. As Danny talked about, he was back in the gym in Utah, and he was feeling that adrenaline rush. He needs that. He is a basketball lifer. This extends that in a way that, frankly, benefits him because, like I said earlier, he has the ability to get credit for the success without the accountability for failure. That is how it's going to play out in Utah. If they struggle or suck or whatever, that ain't on Danny.
Listen, we don't care.
It is about Danny. I love it.
We don't care. We don't care about the Jazz ultimately. Why isn't he here? That's the question of the day, right?
Well,
why isn't he in
it's a question. It's a question of the day because you asked it, but. And I agree, it's a really good question. And I was going to play that in 1 second. I want to play this soundbite first, Bobby, and then I'm going to get to yours because it was a really good question. Two questions. One, why isn't he here? For sure. The other was just basically him talking about, you know what? I might just skip ahead to the Bobby question. I like that one better. Hold on. I'll pull out Bobby's question because there's a little bit of both in here. What Ainge ultimately said was he was tired. of Boston. He got a little fed up with it. But Bobby, asked him this question at the press conference today.
I'm curious, with this new role you're taking on, whether this would have been possible in Boston with something where maybe you took a back seat to Brad stepping into that GM role. Were there any discussions like that to kind of have a role in Boston, possibly like this one, where you did take a step back? And why wasn't that possible in the end?
I think that's a good question. That's been asked before, but I just needed a break. And right now Boston has moved on. They have three capable people, and Brad Stevens and Austin Ainge and Mike Zarin that could run the organizations by themselves. Very capable people that have got great experience in the business. So I just felt that the organization was in great hands moving forward.
Not much.
I love Danny.
Yeah, the look on Danny's face. He's like, "You believe this guy right now?"
Yeah,
It's like, that's
fire.
I've been asked that
Good
damn
question.
question 867 times, Bobby Manning,
Right.
which is not true.
It's not true, and it was a great question,
Bobby.
which
Like,
was
this fall me
and-
Utah, huh?
Bobby. I'm going to tell you why I love the question. Beyond whatever it is a roundabout way of basically saying you were fired, right? Because what you're saying is, great, you have your reasons for leaving Boston were the day-to-day grind, and you needed to step back, and life and family and all of these things. And now you're taking a role that theoretically would allow you to do that because it's not as demanding as the previous. So that begs the question, Mr. Manning, why not here? And the answer is because they didn't freaking want me. So again, while he didn't straight up answer it, Bobby, he basically did. He told you, it really wasn't happening.
Well, he said they had a good thing going there, and I think that coincides with saying, they were ready to move on to Ime and a whole nother, setup.
See,
I guess
I don't think that was at all involved. I think the bigger factor in all of this was the fact that Danny was at a point where he just didn't see any, frankly, pathway towards success with him running the show. And rather than just try to draw this thing out, rather than him having to go fire, because here's the thing, just think about the fact that if, let's say, he did stay and he fired Brad, guess what? He still has to clean up all of this ish that is left.
He left a mess on the he left a mess on the rug. Yeah,
see, I agree with that, Sherrod, but
this was the great Heisman move on his part to distance himself from all the mess in Boston, take a few months off, play a little golf in the Bahamas, and go see the family out west, and know that at some point Utah or Portland was going to come calling with something real. And when it came time to figure out what exactly would your role be, and Danny gave us clues every single time we talked to him about what his next job would be. Yeah, I'm probably going to come back into the game, but I don't want to have the same role that I had in Boston. I don't want to be involved in a day-to-day. Translation, if you want to hire me, you better have someone in place who's going to do the day-to-day, because it's not going to be this guy. So that's exactly what he's got. And I love it. I love it for him.
Yeah, see, I think that's part of it too, but I also think that he knew that if I really want, like, I didn't. If I'm talking about stuff from Danny Ainge, right? I didn't think it would take this long. I think he thought that Jalen and Tatum and Kyrie, whatever scenario or the Kemba situation, once he realized this thing's gonna take another 2-3 years, I'm not in for that.
2 to 3 years?
I don't have that kind of patience right now. I want to be in another situation where I can, like you said, kick back, relax, and also take that break before I'm ready to take that next step.
Well,
I don't think the Utah thing was in his mind, but I think that he was ready for an opportunity like this to present itself.
I think he got sick and tired of dealing with the fact that every damn great idea and plan he had somehow got sabotaged. I mean, you bring in Gordon Hayward, great idea. Gordon gets hurt the first game. Right. You make a trade for Kyrie, great idea. Kyrie says he wants to come back. Then he says he doesn't want to come back. Okay, you hoodwink, bamboozle, however the hell you want to call it, what you did with Philly to get Tatum and a first-round pick out of it. Great idea. Tatum emerges. He's a great player, but he's not quite ready to be the face of the franchise. Jaylen Brown, another good pick. Again, not quite where you need to be in order to be a championship elite team right now. So if you're Danny, you're thinking like, damn, what else can I possibly do here to put us in position to win? It seems everything I do, for some reason, doesn't quite work. So
yeah, you say fire, John. I do think, like Rod said, there was probably some level of agreement from Danny that this just isn't working for either side here. I don't necessarily think the Celtics would have just booed him out the door entirely if he wanted some sort of role. At the same time, I do think there's got to be some.
I don't think so.
I think performance over the last couple of years.
Again, it's hard to say, Bobby, and you might be right. I think it's hard to keep him around if you're basically telling him your leadership and stewardship kind of got us to this point right now, while we value and revere everything you've done for this organization and bringing us the banner, and we want we want to just remember you for the good things. You've really screwed things up in the last 3-4 years in a pretty almost irreparable way. So we need completely new direction in here. So
That's
I don't
the
want
key point.
I don't want you in over somebody's shoulder signing off, because that's kind of sort of you still making the decisions.
Listen,
So it
I'm
is
not
you
diminishing-
can't really bring him. Well, like I said, it was a good question in the sense that it gives you clarity on the question, how did the exit actually go down, which really seems to me and always has like a force out. But I don't think it would have worked with him staying here, because I just don't think you wanted him. You didn't want his fingerprints on anything going forward. You really wanted a clean sheet and to start all over.
But why Brad? That's the outstanding question.
The money,
still,
I
right?
think. And again, we keep going back to the same thing. I really do feel that this is a
So
look, even
Brad was gone, Ainge was gone.
Danny slipped it in a really subtle way in that answer, which is like they've got a good team there with Brad and Austin and Zarin. I really feel like this is the little triumvirate there that's kind of the placeholder GM situation in Boston that had to do with Brad's. Look, we said it there. Danny got fired. Brad got fired up. You know, they wanted a new coach and a new GM. They moved Brad up because they thought he could utilize some of his skills there.
To me.
And it is very weird, but that's what made the most sense then. I still think it makes the most sense now as you're starting to get some answers. Danny clearly wanted to keep working. 6 months later, he gets a job. I mean, that's it. That's the story. And right now, whatever's happening there, what's interesting to me is, does Brad start? What happens if Austin and Zarin leave? Then is Danny hiring? Because I thought about that as well.
That's my fear.
Yeah,
that
seems likely after this season. Now you're left with Brad. Now it's Esser get off the pot situation with Brad of like, is he really the GM and is he really running the whole thing?
Yeah, we'll see about Zarin. There could sort of be a split there, maybe, because it's ultimately who wants to go out to Utah and relocate and restart and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that split. Listen, it's not as relevant for us here and what we're talking about. That split.
We're waiting on Presti.
Really
we're waiting on Presti.
Maybe
if I'm going to lose Zarin, bring me Presti. That's the only thing, because
well, then you're restarting the organization, which is scary in its own
Presti
right.
is pretty
but on the fly though.
When it
he would
restart.
restart it on the fly. It wouldn't be.
I mean, Presti is pretty damn good about this.
See, now that's what I didn't want though. You have this year where Brad does all of this stuff and lays a groundwork for something, and then all of a sudden a new ideology comes in here, even if it's better. Man, did you waste some time here?
But
you
Bobby,
did.
Here's the thing, Bobby. It won't matter if the person who comes in here leads you to a championship. Look at Golden State, the team that's coming into the building Friday. Mark Jackson laid the groundwork for that team to be really good.
It's different with the coach versus the GM, though.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. Steve Kerr comes in and builds on that foundation and gets them to that next step. You don't have to like the fact that they brought Steve Kerr in, but you can't deny the fact that he got the job done that had to be done. And if Brad does a great job of laying this foundation and you bring in a Sam Presti or whoever or Mike Zarin to run the show and they can win a championship, then everyone did what they were supposed to do.
I was certainly skeptical of how long Brad would be for this job, and that still is a question going forward, 100%. But if you were going to go the Presti direction and change there, do it last year. Fire Brad entirely and get the new guy in here. You're just kind of bidding your time for money.
I think it goes back to what John was saying earlier about the money. I think that is a big factor.
That would be incredibly frustrating.
Well, because then you're paying Brad, and then you're going to have to pay the new GM, and
the thinking would be like, Brad would go coach somewhere else. I don't think they're ever gonna fire him, right? If the money was the motivation,
I think Brad will walk away at some point.
That's what it would have to be.
I don't think he'll fire him. I think he'll walk away.
That's what it would have to be.
I think it would be way too early to do something like that, though. Anyways, like you let Brad assess the situation because he's the one that knows these guys best from the locker room, and then transitioning into this, whether it means drafting and his knowledge from his connections in the NCAA and moving forward, we knew from the beginning at least a 2-year period with Brad, and then we'll see what happens next. But in the meantime, I think Brad stays. But
you think Brad's
it's not going to be anytime soon. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, but
Brad's sticking around, John.
I never thought so. Again, nothing today makes me think different. from before.
You think it's
Just
be like
about
a one-season thing?
how the situation went down. Because again, Brad is a coach down to his bones. The idea that Brad Stevens is better served as a GM than the coach of this team has always seemed dubious to me. Never made sense. This is
It
who
doesn't
Brad
make
Stevens
any
is.
sense. It's
He's the molder.
unprecedented.
He's a teacher. He's a really smart, forward-thinking basketball mind. He belongs on the court. That's his thing. It seemed completely out of character, which is why we all dropped our jaw. Doesn't mean he can't do a good job. It's possible he can. It just seemed odd, and the reasoning behind it seemed fairly obvious, which was placeholder, move this up, hold the line. Let's put a Band-Aid on this, and then we'll move forward in a little bit after we've paid down some of your salary. We can get this done this way. That's what it seems like, but who knows, man? They may love everything about him and think he's boy genius, and that's that. And and so be it. He could be here for 10, 15 years. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But that's it. I know people in the chat are a little bit tired of rehashing stuff that happened already. We just wanted to talk about this because it was fresh. Anything else before we move on to the trade stuff, which I know you guys were interested in, as trade season has officially opened up here. So we're going to start talking a little bit about that, and how quickly we see some moves already, a little bit of buzz out there. So we'll talk about that. But guys, you want to put a bow on Ainge here at all?
I'm good. I'm good to move on. I'm just glad that he's back in the game. I'm listen. I don't agree with a lot of the things that Danny does, but I respect the hell about the way he approaches things and how competitive he is in that role. And again, I'm glad to see he's back in the game. And frankly, his role is awesome. I mean, accountability when things go well, no accountability when things suck. He's got the best job in the NBA right now.
Sign me up, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
Guys, final thoughts here? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say at the end of the day, that's what he is. That's who he is to the heart. He's a competitor, and I think that he's gonna take that spirit out west and find that opening. And with the Lakers looking the way they're looking, and there are a couple teams obviously at the top there, but Utah, they have the talent for it. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see what he does with the team, and from that role.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'm glad to see it.
Bobby's mad. He's like, man, what's going on?
Listen, I was always one of the guys who blamed Ainge more than Brad. I never want to fire Brad. I thought he did a fine job as coach. I thought he was a great leader for this team in the head coaching role. Listen, ultimately, I know
Brad had to go. Come on, Bobby. I gotta stop you right there. Brad had to go. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know
that.
They
were done listening to him. Not that he's a bad coach, but with this group, they were done listening to him.
But
it's not his fault. I think he's an excellent coach, but
it's not his fault.
Why no one in the chat cares about this is because everybody wanted Ainge gone at that point. Like no one was sad to see him go.
Maybe I think more people wanted Brad gone, Bobby.
But I think many would have been fine with both. But Ainge certainly, from 2019 on, it was bad move after mistake, after missed draft pick. He made all the right moves up until then, and his legacy secure as one of the great GMs the game has seen, building 2 championship-level cores 10 years apart. But man, did those last 2 years kill them and kind of leave you where we are now in terms of the flexibility and trades and all that stuff. Doesn't destroy his legacy, but it was time to go.
One fatal flaw. You consolidated all of your assets waiting for that big Kyrie Anthony Davis party that never happened. And you sold out on Kyrie.
Well, not only that, you had
AD. So you held your assets. AD said, screw you. Kyrie said, screw you. Then Al did.
You're screwed.
And then Gordon did. And you drafted everybody and you lost them and you let people walk for nothing. And you're right. So it was one after the chain of events after that. Really,
I'm most frustrated by 2020.
He owns it because all of that happened.
You had a champion.
He was holding for the big. This is going to put us as a superpower team for the next decade, and it just didn't happen. Didn't happen.
Even after the Kyrie and Davis stuff passed, you still had enough talent to win a championship in 2020.
No.
Maybe the Kemba decision wasn't the right one. But say you keep Rozier and Horford and make some other moves in that position instead.
Again, I'm never going to question, Bobby, the Kyrie trade, which we were all 1,000 out of 1,000 people thought that was a phenomenal deal, and you would do it again, and it blew up, and it happens. And nobody wanted Rozier back, and everybody was geeked up that Kemba was going to be the Kyrie replacement. At the time, both of those seemed like phenomenal moves. They just ended up not working, but he swung them both. And those looked like wins, and they didn't end up being wins. So I'm not going to do the hindsight game on those, because I think universally everyone was like, "That's great." And the first few months of Kemba, you're like, "Oh my god, it's like 90%. It's like 90% of Kyrie without the drama, and what a good guy, and people like him. We'll take.
He's better than Kyrie."
Well, no, Bobby, what I thought you were going to say, if that 2020 team in the bubble was completely healthy, obviously Kemba Walker, no injuries. Gordon Hayward is completely healthy. You know what that team would have done with the talent they had, but
they were close even with all those injuries. So maybe you get a bench piece in there, you flip some of the picks.
Right.
You don't go as young as they did with that 2019 draft. I mean, there are so many second guesses from those 2 years, and feels like forever ago now. But man, they could have won it all that year.
All right, so let's move along. As we said, one of the reasons we were going to do the show in the first place, because the trade season started. Want to give people a little programming note. What we're going to do right after we're done talking here, we're going to take this over to Twitter Spaces. Probably,
I'm going to judge your trades like Ramsey.
Bobby is going to weigh in on your trades, and if he doesn't like them, bam, drops the hammer, just launches you into Twitter Space. And that's it.
Out of Twitter Space.
Right, launches you right into Twitter Space.
You're gonna get unfiltered, Bobby.
Yeah. So we are doing it. A little program. It's called Trading Spaces. Get it? So join us on Twitter for that. Right after this show, we'll literally direct you. Make sure you follow us at Celtics CLNS to talk about some trades. So let's talk about some trades. Unofficial start to the season. People start theorizing stuff. You obviously get the agents jumping in and a little Ben Simmons chatter and blah, blah, blah. But where's everyone's head at in terms of the Celtics here as things kind of open up, both in terms of what you want to see them do and also just in terms of timing? I know everyone is talking about buyers or sellers. I think that's a huge conversation that's going to be had. I think you're going to have to figure it out. December's a brutal month, but the schedule gets more favorable in January. You're going to really have to look at where you are and whether or not you think you're anything more than a play-in team. But if you're not, then you have to talk about selling. So where's your mind at right now? Are you in a buy mode or sell mode? Sherrod, start with you.
I am in a sell mode. Because here's the thing. I think you can move a couple of pieces and help yourself in the short and long term. I think that there are some guys out there that you really, if you're the Boston Celtics, you need to make a legitimate inquiry beyond just, hey, how's this guy doing for? One guy that I would love to see in a Celtics uniform is Cam Reddish, who I think is going to be a pretty good player in the right situation. Atlanta's just not a good fit for him.
You think that one's possible?
What's that?
You think it's possible?
Well, I think, let's put it this way. He's available. I do know that. And it's just a matter of, do you have any assets within the Celtics roster that they would be interested in? That, to me, that's the issue. That's the biggest issue.
I love that one. I don't love Cam Reddish. I didn't like him at Duke. I obviously scouted him pretty heavily coming in the draft that year, and I thought he was so underwhelming that season. But, man, when he's on, he can shoot. He's got shooting pedigree. He's a defensive wing. And this guy was, like, you look back on that Zion, RJ Barrett class, he was as good of a prospect coming out of high school as either of those guys, maybe better. So he hasn't worked, like you said, with the Hawks. I love the idea of maybe being able to flip Schroeder for him. Maybe you have to compensate with a pick or something. I think it'd be worth it, because
if I need to throw in one of my late as hell in the first round picks to get that deal done, the deal's going to get done. If
and Atlanta gets a backup point guard,
that'll be the difference.
That's a dream kind of shake-up deal mid-season for the Celtics.
I think this team is shooting, though, Shrug.
And if you're Atlanta,
he's a shooter, Josue.
Yeah, he's a shooter, but I want a sharpshooter. I don't want someone like, I don't know, someone who's...
You don't want a streak shooter?
Who's having a kind of a down year in Sacramento. You know, he's approaching 30.
In Atlanta.
Like Buddy Hield.
Buddy Hield's been in the league like 2 years and he's approaching 30. That should tell you something there, Josue.
Yeah, but he hasn't had a good situation, man. I'm telling you.
He
needs two of the best.
You don't have good situations because you're old.
Yo,
And
but
he's
he's not on the
expensive.
wrong
Guys,
side of
Cam
30. Sherrod.
Cam Reddish.
He's not on the wrong side of 30. He's on the right
Cam
side.
Reddish
of
has a career 38% field goal percentage and 32% from three.
That's why you can get him.
Buddy Hield's having a
getting
down
better.
year, which I think works in the Celtics' favor for a trade. All right, he's a career 40% 3-point shooter. You know, he has the spacing with playing alongside guys like Tatum and Brown. That's the most important part. I don't think that I think they can pull this trade off without trading one of those guys.
This
or
feels
someone
like
Marcus Smart.
another. This feels like another guy who can't shoot but will shoot. We got a lot of those, you know.
No, he can't
But he's
shoot.
he's
That's
20.
the difference,
Oh,
though.
so
None of those guys.
wait,
There's a lot of those guys.
over 40% in their career.
I'm one of those
John-
guys.
He likes
telling
3-pointers,
you.
but 3-pointers don't like him, you know.
John-
And look, this is the guy. This is the type of guy that'll be motivated in this situation, and he'll give you some defense on the other end because of his athleticism and because of his stretch. That defense that you never saw in Sacramento, you're not going to get that same effort in Boston. I don't think. Look,
John's
and again,
talking-
this would be a deal that you don't give away one of your top guys. It's going to take a future first for sure. I think. You know, you package Richardson, you package so either Romeo or Neesmith and Honcho, you know, to make the contracts worth, and then you put that first round pick to put a bow in it. Listen, this would be after the Sacramento Kings have tried other options. They say, you know, this is one of the best options for them. You know, so this is.
I don't mind the idea.
It wouldn't be easy for the Celtics, but I think it's feasible.
Holy
I do.
shit, Buddy Hield turns 29 in like 2 days.
I'm telling you,
He's on the right side of 30. All right, that's the right side.
Oh
not the
my
left.
god!
So I wouldn't knock it,
He's-
John, because
He's 6 years older than friggin'. He's 6 years old.
That works in the Celtics' favor. Okay, the Kings. Listen,
He's 6
the
years
Kings
older
will
than
take-
Jason Tatum.
The Kings will take a chance.
Jason
on
Tatum's
Neesmith in this
pension
deal.
kicks in soon.
Listen,
All right.
the Kings will take a chance on Neesmith in this deal if you couple it with a first round pick, if you couple it with someone like, you know, Hernan Gomez, and guess what? They're all off the books by 2023, so they can go into free agency with a little bit of cash. You know, if they don't like what they see.
I'm
Get
not
him off the
knocking.
books. By the way, I missed you, Jack. And where you been, buddy? Anyway,
I'm not knocking it, Joe. I'm not knocking it. In fact, I think it's feasible just because of how long Sacramento's been trying to get off of him. I'm just not sure those four guys get it done. There's probably something out there, and he's expensive. That's a killer, right? Like $22 million for 3 years.
Bobby, that's really my biggest issue with it is the cost tag, is a price tag.
Because all he does is
Come
shoot.
on.
He
In a
doesn't
couple
give
of
you
years,
anything
$20
else.
million is going to be nothing in the NBA. Come on.
That's big
Yeah,
tax
but
money,
Joe
though, for
Sway,
Boston.
Listen, I want a guy who can do more than just, you know, knock down shots, because there are guys in
No,
the league who
let's-
do
let's-
that.
Let's make no
Well,
mistake.
he's
He can.
I'm good. I just want to knock
He
down
can,
shot.
he can
You know,
really shoot.
They need someone like this, man. You know, he's not Ray or Steph Curry, but you know, he's just someone that's going to get open looks, and they don't have someone like that. They haven't had someone like that in a really long time.
Doesn't it feel like Levert for that 17 million TPE we have just seems perfect? By the way,
Karis LeVert?
yeah.
Oh, all in. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm all in on that.
You have exactly a $17 million TPE
Yeah.
here.
I would love.
You know,
And
out of everyone that's been rumored to trade from Indiana, he's my favorite one.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't-
love that deal. Make that
I don't think he solves your problems, but man, you get this team that's cheap and wants to get away from that tax line
He's worth
to
the
just
risk.
dump all that money on you. I think that's a great buy to take if you're Boston, and send them Schroeder or something to just, you know, cut money there and send a guy over that they can still sustain with. I love that idea, John. I just don't think it's a magic.
it's
stroke
not
to
magic,
fix
but
it.
again,
They're gonna
I
find
think
magic
we
at the
have
trade
to be. We can't play this game. We can't play he's really good, but he's not great at pick and roll defense. Like, you're not getting the prom
But
queen,
he's not
you know?
cheap. He's not cheap.
I understand that, but you got to weigh everything. Where are you getting it? You know, what else is coming down the pike? Are you going to be able, the money expires, so it's use it or lose it. You don't have the space to go sign someone like that on your own. You don't have draft picks that are developed who are ready to step into roles. You've got to roll the dice on guys who you think you can grow with, whose arrow might be pointing up, and you can't look at their warts, you know? Like, that's the best shot you have. Or you just fold up your tent and wait around for the perfect situation that may or may not come. You're going to have to take a leap of faith with somebody. You're going to have to love it. Josh Richardson to me is a Band-Aid. It's a 2-year, it's a Band-Aid for a guy who's a professional basketball player and isn't Semi Ojeleye, essentially. Like, so Levert is a guy who you think this guy might turn into, all-star caliber type of guy, here with us playing alongside these guys. Maybe. I mean, that's what I'm not saying he will, but if you feel strongly about it, you take the leap of faith, and the money in 2 years, that's going to be nothing. Like 17 million is nothing. That's lower middle class money in the NBA, where the direction things are going. It's not that much money. Bobby, we lost you. Lost your audio.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not that. It's not that bad, especially because you're taking a chance on a guy who's proven he can be a scorer for you. He can produce. He can produce off the dribble. He can give you constant offense, which is what this team essentially needs from guys who are, not named Tatum or Brown.
Yeah,
that'd be huge. That's true. He is always hurt.
He is hurt, but like I said,
but
Sherrod likes him.
I do. The guy that I like even more is just not available though, because he's out with a foot injury, and that's T.J. Warren. T.J. Warren, buckets. I mean,
I don't know if he's going to be the same, Sherrod.
Right.
I don't know.
But that's why, to me, he's not someone that's even in the conversation, because he hasn't played a game yet this year. Still out with the foot injury. I think he had a scan today that they said was favorable, whatever the hell favorable means when you get a foot scan. There's still no timetable for
the opposite of what Zion shows.
Right.
Right.
Unnecessary dig, but okay. Yeah.
If it doesn't look like Zion's foot, it's promising.
Yeah. One more thing on Levert. I don't know what Indiana would be asking for him. I'd assume it'd have to be a pick or something. Maybe one of the young players.
Definitely a first round.
It wouldn't be a devastating package to give up. I just think it's a little expensive for a guy that hasn't shown a ton of promise. Some promise in Brooklyn, in bursts. Nothing in Indiana. He's had a rough year there. I like Sherrod's idea better in terms of a young player that still has press camp. Reddish, who's 22. Levert's 27. Has shooting pedigree. Levert is never a shooter. I think the fit would be troublesome next to the Jays. He's another guy that needs the ball in his hands. Reddish is a guy that doesn't really need the ball at all. Ideally, if there's space for him to operate, he can knock down shots. He's an excellent defender. That's a real buy low option that I love, because it hasn't worked out for him in Atlanta. You read the numbers, John. They haven't been good for him there through a couple seasons now. But there's a guy that was a consensus top 3 pick coming into his draft class and ended up falling because of a bad year. Maybe he's just not good. I didn't love him at Duke. I haven't loved him in the league. But there was some pedigree there that I think you buy low on. And he only makes a rookie deal, so you can flip Schroeder for him maybe.
And that's right. And that's, to me, what makes it, a worthy roll of the dice. It's a very low risk, high reward.
I think Atlanta could use Schroeder too, right?
What's that?
I think Atlanta could use Schroeder. They don't really have a backup
they can
point
use
guard.
him. Absolutely.
Everyone can use Schroeder, Bobby.
The question is whether anyone views Schroeder as, when it comes down to the decision to trade Schroeder or not to trade Schroeder, it's less about, there's two angles to it. One, what kind of message it sends to the Jays, which I know you guys have talked about. And
that's why you get back a player.
We agree. We can agree to not agree to disagree. I think it sends a bad message, but I also think they're not dumb and they'll know. Like, I know people are competitive, but you know what you've got. And if you're talking about, guys, we're really trying to build for something here and take a big swing in the offseason, and we need to stockpile some assets. We're going to need some picks because we're going to go try to get somebody good. And we need assets, and we don't have them now. So
listen, he's on a 1-year deal. They know the game.
People will understand this. You're on a 1-year deal. This is how the game is played. I don't think Jalen and Jason are going to quit on the organization and demand trades because you traded Schroeder. They might be slightly disappointed, but I don't think it kills you. The other question is whether any team values him enough to give up a real asset.
And see, the thing about it,
whether he elevates you. Go ahead, Sherrod.
The thing about Atlanta, though, is that, if ever there was a year where they're in win now mode, it's now. They want to have, because they came so close last year, and they realized they're just maybe 1 or 2 rotational pieces away from maybe getting over that hump. And when you look at what Schroeder has done with the Celtics, you look at his past, history with the Hawks, it makes a lot of sense. And they're not going to be worried about whether we're going to be able to re-sign him this offseason, because if they do, They do, and if they don't, it's no big deal. They're going all in right now.
You know,
and if you're giving up a Cam Reddish to get a Schroeder, that's a great deal because you probably weren't going to bring him back anyway. So for them, there's a chance to further your opportunities to compete at the highest level now without dramatically impacting what you're looking to do going forward.
And
who
you're
else
gonna
needs
have
a point guard? Go ahead. Sorry.
You're gonna have to end up compensating a team for if you're gonna get a real play. It's like you're either getting a pick back for Schroeder because you're getting no players, and that's
what's
sort of a
gonna
sell.
happen.
That's sort of a
Right.
sell scenario. If you're getting a Reddish, you're probably giving up a pick because of the fact that we're Atlanta with this player under cost control, and we can't re-sign Schroeder after this year. So there's gonna have to be a pick sent there to make up for the value difference in the two players.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
just
that's
makes
what I
sense
think.
for both.
When it comes to Schroeder's value, I just don't know if the Celtics will necessarily win a deal. So it does send the wrong message if you're not if the best thing you're getting back is a future first. I mean, if you're Tatum and Brown, you're
That's
like,
a
well,
great deal.
But at the same time, if you're Tatum and Brown, you're like, well, what about this year?
I think
need
getting
that
anything
for
from is a
offense.
good deal.
But
Honestly, do you
if
believe?
he's going in for a deal for someone like Cam Reddish? That's a different conversation. You know,
Do you believe for real, Josue, that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown think that Dennis Schroeder is the difference between them making a run or not? I don't know whether or not
but if
they
you're
do.
taking away one of their
I don't
offensive
think-
weapons and you're not getting someone that's
If Dennis
equal
Schroeder's
value,
minutes-
they're not going to be happy.
If Dennis Schroeder's minutes are going to be divided among, Peyton Pritchard showing a little bit more confidence in his shot and Romeo Langford starting to play more meaningful minutes and Jason Richardson, who's more of a team-oriented player and isn't going to dominate them. Josh Richardson, sorry, team-oriented player. You think Jalen and Jason are gonna lament the touches that went out the door with Schroeder leaving?
No,
They
Brown
might-
will get more touches.
They might
But that's the
exactly.
thing,
They might
know
be
that's
like,
not the recipe. See,
Okay,
but they
if
might
this
be
is
like,
still-
I can live with it.
program. That's
you know.
against the-
That's what I liked. I mentioned this in my column.
I
on
don't
Monday.
think they care about Dennis Schroeder. I do not believe that Dennis Schroeder. I'm sorry, they might actually want them to trade Dennis Schroeder. To just trade Dennis Schroeder.
After
You know,
he yelled
like,
at Tatum on Monday.
you can't yell at Jason Tatum.
They like
Vanish
the offensive production. Trust
the
me.
woods of
If
Atlanta.
the Celtics are lined up to make a deal that includes Neesmith.
I
and,
don't
like,
think they like him. Yeah.
I hope
if
there's
this-
not.
this- Go ahead.
I hope there's not been there done that feeling though for Atlanta and Schroeder because obviously they have been there, done that. Brought him into the league. He was there forever, and they sent him packing. Right, Sherrod? They traded him. So
Has anybody ever liked Dennis Schroeder?
me,
No, I like him too, but I'm saying to his teammates. Has anybody
Al.
on a team?
Al.
Al, you're right.
Al,
You're right.
Al loved him down in Atlanta. So listen, it's
The
a
way
different
Al's face
situation
lights
down
up
there
when
now.
you ask him about Dennis is kind of scary a little bit.
Yeah, that's just like one of his favorite.
And again,
teammates.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
so I'm not worried about the message. I'm worried about whether a team views someone like Dennis Schroeder as the guy who's going to put us over. You know who might be dumb enough to do it? The Knicks.
Oh,
Because the
Well,
Knicks,
when will you get back from New York?
I don't know. What do they got?
Kemba.
Kemba again. Yeah,
Kemba?
Kemba. Another dose of Kemba.
I'm good.
I said it tongue in cheek.
Then everyone
I
will be a
probably-
Kemba fan again. Yeah. What's
I
that?
probably
Anyway.
wouldn't. I said it tongue in cheek earlier in the week. I probably wouldn't do it, even with the compensation from the Knicks. So right
Wait,
now, what
You
are?
probably wouldn't do it, Bobby.
Well, here's
That
why.
means there's a percentage of you that thinks this might actually work.
Here's why I would think about it, Sherrod, because you're
Explain.
gonna get an unprotected first round pick from the Knicks this year. That's what, like 13 right now. Not terrible. I think the Knicks are jumping.
There's
up into
no
the
way the
20s.
Knicks would give that.
Well, that's the only way you're gonna get rid of that contract for a guy who can't play right now.
Oh, for Kemba. Yes.
Yes.
You would take Kemba in that 13 pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think
maybe
that
Kemba
13
can play
pick is
out
going to
your
wind up
bench.
being better than 13 when all said and done. I think the Knicks are going to slowly but surely
But Kemba's
bottom
not
out
the
to
problem
top
anymore.
10.
Kemba's not the problem because he doesn't make a ton of money anymore. Now they want to get rid of
Yes.
Fournier's contract. Would you take on Fournier's contract?
Bobby would.
No, just because you'd have to match it, and that's sending out too much stuff. I would have signed him to that, but no, I wouldn't trade for that.
Kemba,
Kemba
I would do that. I would absolutely do that.
and the first this year. Now that's the sell scenario, probably, right? Because unless Kemba can become a bench contributor for Boston, he's not helping you that much right now. So I'd rather go for a young player who has some promise. I'm looking at the Bucks a little bit. If I'm going to bring up a shorter trade, the Bucks, they're a thin team. They have much of a bench in terms of scoring and facilitating. They're obviously a championship contending team, and they have a ton of shooting. Take your pick. Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Dante
I don't want
DiVincenzo.
Grayson.
Could you take? You wouldn't trade Schroeder for Grayson?
No.
Oh, did you
That's
see
just
the
me
overtime
not
game
liking
there?
Grayson.
He was
Bobby, it has nothing to do with basketball, has nothing to do with the salary cap, has nothing to do with
He and Tatum hated each other.
I just don't like him.
He and Tatum didn't get along because Tatum showed up as a freshman and he's like, I'm the man. And like they had an issue, right?
You see what I'm saying? I just don't think
He's
that
just
would
bad
be
vibes.
good for team.
How about the local kid, Pat Connaughton?
I do like Pat.
Everyone likes
Milwaukee's not
Pat.
letting go.
I do like Pat.
Milwaukee's not letting go
Everyone
of him, though.
Now that his shot is falling consistently and
Yeah,
you
they're not
know
letting
he's
go.
a
They
great
love him,
athlete. No, they
Yeah.
love him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love Pat. I love Shimmy in Milwaukee. I think that's where he needs to stay. Good place for him. Don't want to go back there. Rodney Hood. I wasn't even thinking about. I remember when Rodney Hood came into the draft and the Celtics were trying to figure
Or
out
his Achilles, didn't he?
Rodney or James Young. Rodney or James Young.
Didn't he tear his Achilles?
Yeah, or he had some
That's
type
not
of.
great.
He had a major injury of some kind. I can't remember if it was Achilles or not. I don't know. I mean, Milwaukee. The only guy on that team I would seriously want to do a deal for if I'm Boston is Pat. That's the only one that to me makes sense. Forget about the hometown angle. He's just a good player who keeps getting better.
No, they like him a lot. He's not going anywhere.
No, he's
Do
perfect
they need
for what
a
they
point
need.
guard though? They got a couple shooters. Dante DiVincenzo's coming back. They got to pay all these guys in the next year or two here, particularly.
Well,
those
Dante,
two.
you're going to be able to keep on the cheap if you're Milwaukee because of the injury and because he hasn't
Maybe.
played. So you'll be able to keep, and he hasn't done enough to where there's going to be this huge ass. Ooh, we got to get DiVincenzo on the team. No. They'll keep
And
him
they
on.
can't keep. And this is the problem you keep running into is whatever team receives Schroeder can't keep him long term either. So that probably shuts.
Which is why the only teams that are going to seriously be interested in him are teams that are in win now mode. Teams that have to, in their minds, get it done now. If they're ever
Denver.
going to get it done. That's why Atlanta. I keep coming back to Atlanta. That just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
How about Denver?
They've got. I don't really know what to make of Denver's team.
Yeah, they got issues, man.
Yeah.
Nothing's
I mean,
gone
You
right
need,
for them.
you need some scoring there. You need a guy to fill point guard while Jamal's out. Maybe they send you Jeff Green.
Maybe.
Why would that?
Bobby had a thing for Jeff Green last year. It's good, you know.
I'm just
Listen,
going
you
to
need
walk
another
away
wing.
from that one.
You got him. His name is
2
That's what
Romeo.
I'm saying. Most of their pieces are just they're either banged up or you're not quite sure about.
I wouldn't mind JaMychal Green though. I would not mind him. I like him. He's got like poor man Draymond syndrome.
He's
going
a
on
he's
there.
a power forward. Yeah,
I can live
He's
with
a
that.
good deal power forward.
I can.
So that's an
I don't know if
interesting
you
team.
need that with this team. I don't know if you necessarily need that, but and Will Barton, who I love,
He's
You
a little
score.
expensive.
but to your point, you're right.
Dallas, point guard next to Luka. Looking at maybe Finney Smith.
Nah,
No,
they look good in
no.
those.
Sterling Brown, no. Bullock, no. I just don't want to
Pick
deal
a
with
fire on
Dallas.
Josh Green. Listen, I think the mold of what you're going to get for Schroeder is a low-cost young guy who's on a rookie deal that matches with Schroeder, a pick, or you could potentially take on extra salary with the TP, but the Celtics probably won't do that. I don't think they're going to dive deeper into the tax with where they're at. So
Do you
you're taking
think
a young
there's a
player or
market
a
for
pick.
Josh Richardson? Do you think there's a market for Josh?
A lot of people seem to think so. I'm surprised by that.
More than
I mean,
Schroeder.
I think the fact that he has an extra year on
the
his
extra
I
career
know.
is
That's
helpful.
But I don't know. Is that a good thing, or do you just want salary to match and then move on?
I think it's a good thing if you're talking about a team that
Teams
wants
like
to
having
add
medium
him.
salary.
Yeah, and test him out for a year and then see what he'll do in a contract year next season. But if you're looking to win right now, I don't think he's a good fit because, again, he's got that extra year. And if you're not really sure if you're going to want him beyond this season coming up, no,
I don't think
you're in a situation.
what you get for him helps you
I
at
don't-
all either. Though,
Feels like
and
they were
he's-
trying to dump him like crazy. They were thrilled the Celtics took him. So I don't know. Has he been rehabilitated to the point that
The mid-range jumper has me kind of excited about watching him play now.
mid-range is
I don't know
sexy
whether-
again?
Listen,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fool's goal or what, but I know when he
He's shooting
plays.
35% from three too.
You just got to
Bringing
get back
sexy
out there.
back. Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
the
he's
thing,
been
gotta get back
actually
out
a much better shooter for a guy who historically has not been a shooter in this league. So
And
All
he's
right.
a valuable match.
This is the guy that they wanted, the guy from Miami.
We're just getting started on this conversation. We know we got a lot of you guys joining us here, but we're going to tell you, we're going to move things over momentarily. First off, just want to tell you one of our sponsors, LinkedIn.com. It's LinkedIn Talent Solutions. If you're looking to hire, get a chance to post your first job for free if you go to linkedin.com/garden. Once again, linkedin.com/garden. We're talking about, Josue, how many people?
700 million.
700 million. It's amazing there's that many adults in this.
70 million. 70 million.
775 million people on LinkedIn. There's so many of them.
Everyone has access to the internet nowadays, I guess. Everyone's on LinkedIn.
People, sure. Yeah, right. So they're there looking to hire, baby. So, we're looking for jobs. So if you've got, you want to post a job, LinkedIn Talent Solutions, go to linkedin.com/garden, post your first job for free. What we're going to tell you now is we're going to take this whole situation over to Twitter Spaces so we can hear from you guys. It's the first time doing that this season. So we're going to wrap things up here and head on over. We can do the same thing we've always done. Sherrod, if you want to head over with me, you and I can go first. Bobby and Josue can put a bow on this. Bobby, do you have studio control or no?
I do.
Okay, you can wrap the show up. Don't go more than a couple of minutes, okay? And just put a bow on here. Remind it to everybody. The link is in the YouTube chat here, so it's pinned. You guys can jump on in there. We're gonna hop on over and do that thing for a little while. Talk trades.
Bring your trades. Fire up the machine.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys. So let me press one more button here, and we'll head out. And Bobby, I will give you full control. Guys, we're heading over. Bobby, Josue, come join us in a minute.
All right.
Peace out.